Historic times going on here in New Hampshire. Anthony Lamacchia here, broker owner of Lamacchia Realty, here to give you a housing market update, both a review of the first quarter and what I see coming up in the summer months. Stay tuned in, folks. Lots of information starting right now. First, I want to just talk to buyers and sellers as a whole. Let's spend a few minutes before we get into the data. So, buyers, you should be starting to get in a better mood, okay? Inventory is coming on. Granted, we're at that time of year right now where it's getting swallowed up as fast as it's coming on, but in the weeks to come, that will get better, okay? That will get easier. So buyers, stay in the game, stay focused. And the other thing that I want to mention, and I did a video on this a few weeks ago with buyers, is this is the time of year, really the last 90 days and about the next 40, 50 days, you either got to step up or wait, period. When you go out to make an offer on a home, if that home is priced accurately, if that home is priced competitively in that market, you have to be willing to put in a really good offer. In many cases, go over asking price. Consider waiving some contingencies if you can, if you want to land that property. That's just the way it is. It's the nature of the seasonality in this business. I tell all of you every year that the best time to buy every year is the second part of the year. But for many, many reasons, the vast majority of you home buyers come out and want to buy in the first part of the year. The school year has an impact. When people's leases expire has an impact. And that's why it goes that way. So my recommendation is if you want to land something soon, if you need to land something soon, you have to be willing to step up, okay? Whatever happens to the market in the next 2 or 3 years, there's 100 debates going on. No matter what, I can promise you this. In 5 years, the property will be worth more. And in 10 years, it'll be worth dramatically more. So whatever goes on in the next couple of years, there's a lot of room for debate there. It doesn't really matter because in the long run, it'll be worth dramatically more. For those of you home buyers that are concerned about what they call a housing crash, folks, how can you have a crash when you barely have any inventory? We don't even have 1 million homes for sale in the United States. And when the last time when the market did crash for 3 or 4 years, which was 08, 9, 10, 11, we had 4 million homes for sale. So you can't have a lack of something and then have the value of it go down. The basic laws of supply and demand. So don't be concerned about that. Once again, if you want to land something soon, you've got to step up. Now, if you start to lose your patience and you say, I've got to either find something or I have to sign a lease, fine. If you have to sign a lease, do it. But here's a strong recommendation. Do not do a 12-month lease, or next year at the same time, you will be in the same position. Okay? You'll be in the same position. Try to sign a 15-month lease. Try to sign a 16. So that way your lease expires late next summer so that you're looking late spring and summer instead of late winter, early spring, which is where we are now when everybody fights over homes. I hope that makes sense to you. Now, I want to talk to home sellers. Home sellers, please remember, last summer and fall, you all got a little wake-up call to the fact that you can't just raise prices endlessly. And many were talking about a housing crash and all these kinds of things. And then if you log on to anthonyspredictions.com and you scroll down to the section that talks about sales and talks about pricing, I specifically said we would be back in multiple offer situations in the winter. I believe I said January 15th to April 15th would be the strongest, and then it would wear off a little. Here we are at the end of April, okay? We've been through multiple offers. Don't let it go to your heads, okay? Don't push the envelope too far, because now we're getting to the time of year that the amount of buyers, okay, here's what happens every year. This many buyers at the beginning of the year, this many sellers, particularly up here in the northern states. Now we're getting to the time of the year, the amount of buyers is going down, amount of sellers is starting to go up. It's not noticeable. I'm going to show you in the data. It's not that noticeable yet of the inventory noticeably coming up, but homes listed is going up. And within a few weeks, the inventory each week, that snapshot we take that I'm going to show you shortly, is going to start to creep up. Okay, so the amount of buyers from here on out is going to start decreasing. Amount of sellers is increasing. So for those of you who didn't list in the last 60 days, you really should have. You've got a small window left here in the next couple of weeks where you can probably get away with pushing the envelope a little bit with your price. But once we get to about the middle of May, from there on out, you can't push the envelope as much. You've got to be smart. You've got to be smart. If you overplay your hand, you will get bit. And we saw that happen to a lot of sellers last summer and fall, and they got aggravated when they didn't sell. Okay, here's the truth, home sellers. Us realtors get more credit than we deserve when homes sell fast, and we get more blame than we deserve when homes don't sell. So if your home is being marketed correctly, which if you're listed with Lamacchia Realty, I can guarantee you it is. No one does more marketing than our realtors and our company. If it's priced accordingly, it will sell. If you push the envelope too far, you're going to end up late spring and you're going to say, well, my neighbor's house sold for more. Why is mine not selling? Because your neighbor listed in February and you listed in June. Major difference in the market from those two seasons. I hope that makes sense. Obviously, I'm talking broadly here. Real estate is hyper-local, but talk to our agents about it. Talk to whatever agent, hopefully at Lamacchia, that you're talking to identify that right price. But don't overplay your hand. All right, I had a home seller actually in this room. I haven't sat in on a direct conversation with a seller in some time, but we had a home seller who has a condominium in Florida that we're working on selling. And we had to have a conversation about price. This is a family friend. And I had to discuss how, hey, look, if COVID didn't happen, we wouldn't even be talking about numbers this high. And the person agreed. So let's not forget that. The value of your home right now, even if you're in a market where maybe prices settled back a little bit last fall, now they've increased again, you're still talking about numbers that are 20, 30, 35% higher than pre-COVID. So just keep that in mind and don't overplay your hand. I hope that makes sense. Now, let's jump into the data. Take a look at what is going on out there. And we're going to start with the March New Hampshire housing report. I'm going to breeze over and just talk about, and I should mention, one thing I actually should have mentioned before is, no, here's what I want to do. Here's what I want to do. Ready? Oh, one more thing I should mention that happened in March. Snowstorm in the beginning of March brought a lot of snow, substantially delayed homes getting listed, and had an impact in March. The other noteworthy thing that I should have mentioned about March was the Silicon Valley Bank collapse. That had an impact. It helped mortgage interest rates, but it did cause a 10-day kind of, whoa, what's going on here among consumers, both buyers and sellers. So we saw a little bump in the road there pretty much in every state we're in, but the snow affected southern New Hampshire and central Massachusetts more, and that's why I wanted to mention it. So let's jump into the March housing report for New Hampshire, which I got to look at this and see why it looks. Here we go. All right. So if you take a look at this information, it's pretty clear. Home sales down 18.2%. I mean, Massachusetts was over like 25%. So New Hampshire didn't get hit as bad, but home sales are down among everything. If you look, I'm going to go closer in here so I can really read it. Multifamily's down 35%, single families down 12%, condos down 27%, creating an average of down about 18%. But homes listed, look, 26, same story I've been talking about. We had the least amount of homes got listed in the first quarter of any other first quarter as far back as we can see. So it's definitely an interesting time. People are holding on to their homes. People are more concerned about losing their interest rate. And that's just the function of the times that we're living in. And most of you in New Hampshire know that the majority of the home sales in New Hampshire happen in the southern part of the state, and it's somewhat of an extension of Massachusetts. So that's just a couple of things I wanted to point out from the housing report. Now I would like to show you the real estate updates page that we update every single week. And look at this, folks. Right here, I want to make sure you can see it well. I'm going to actually go full screen on this so you can see. But take a look at this purple line. That's the amount of homes listed each and every week. Just about every single week, other than the third week in January, there's been less homes listed than a year ago, I guess you could say, other than maybe the Easter week, but that's because Easter was on different weeks. But we're really talking about anywhere from 200 to 400 homes getting listed in the last, call it 6 weeks, when a year ago it was 400 to 600 homes getting listed. This is a historic time that we're in, and this is the case for pretty much every state, especially the New England states. I mean, just did a Massachusetts update, and it's the same thing. So it's definitely an interesting time, and we have to deal with it. As home buyers, you got to have some patience. Wait until you get closer to summer. As I mentioned before, summer and fall, better time to buy. You want to buy now, you have to step up. Now take a look at homes pending, down just about each and every week. But it's interesting, it rivals last year on certain weeks. And that, folks, is exactly why inventory is being driven lower, because less is being listed in some weeks just as much as going pending, so it's eating up the inventory and bringing it down. Look at the solds, lower each and every time. But I want to point out the distinction between homes sold and prices. Oftentimes people get confused with the two. I'll go back into that a little bit more in a minute, but let's take a look at this. This is inventory by month, active inventory, a snapshot of active inventory in the state of New Hampshire. Look at this. As of right now, 1,500 homes for sale in the state of New Hampshire. Massachusetts has got 6,500. Comparatively speaking, Massachusetts back in 06, 7, 8 had 47, 45,000. New Hampshire had 15,000. We had 10 times the inventory. So when people try to tell me, oh, the market's going to crash, it's going to crash. A crash to me is 25+% in price depreciation. Not happening. Not happening. And that's because of how low inventory is. Now, if you follow my cursor here, here's what I expect to see this year. As time goes on, our inventory will go up, but we're caught in this, spot where it's going to stay tight for a while. So if you're a buyer, you got to step up if you want to own a home. If you're a seller, be realistic, more realistic than you were a year ago, more realistic as we get into summer. But you're still pretty much in the driver's seat for a few more months here as a seller. Now, let me scroll down. Prices per month. Look at this. We're still hovering around a $500,000 average. Obviously, in the winter, the average price is a little bit lower because of those are the transactions that were negotiated in the late fall. Then as we get into summer, they always go up a bit. But bottom line, New Hampshire is holding strong at 500. I want to point something out, though. Prior to COVID, 3 years ago, look at the average price. 300,000, now we're at 5. So even if prices were in the next year or two to slide backwards, say 3 or 5%, when we get probably into a recession in a year, doesn't really matter. I can guarantee you that 5 years from now, the market will be in a position where prices will be higher. Can guarantee you prices will be higher in 5 years. In 10 years, they'll be dramatically higher. That's how it works. So, good luck buying and selling in New Hampshire, my friends. Stay tuned into our reports, and hopefully you're working with a Lamacchia realtor. Thank you. Have a great day.